Hello, kids. It's me. I'm back again. I'm loving it. I can't get enough of this shit. In the best possible way, obviously. Now, how are you going today? I hope you're all right. I'm here in lovely Sydney, and the rain has just stopped. It's slightly bright. You might be getting some glare from there, but just focus on me, on the eyes. Not around the eyes, just the eyes, okay? Not the mouth, the eyes, okay? Basically, today, what we're going to talk about, I find myself just being really passionate about this because it's something that I went through myself a number of times to build up to a point where I had to really understand what was happening in my life. And that's basically learning to understand more of an emotional and not so much physiological, but more psychological, I can say it without breaking down, psychological things which we need to face and confront. I'm starting to stutter at some stage in our lives. The programming that we have, or that we've conditioned ourselves to have over the years of living a particular way or telling ourselves particular things, the role models we've had, the agreements we've made with ourselves, and how we start to live our lives or manifest our lives in the way that we interact with others. Self-respect is more than just two words hyphenated. It's a way of life. It's understanding that self-respect is the first and last thing that you need in your life. You can be right or wrong, but being respectful and kind towards yourself are two of the most important things that you need to be able to do. Everybody in their life at some stage has some form of doubt about themselves or other people. And fundamentally, it's not uncommon for people to lose their way and to feel that they don't have the right to say how they feel or what they want in a particular matter, because they're unaware as to what their worth is or what they're able to ascertain from the other person as feedback, and the parameters and boundaries, which are very important words in understanding self-respect. That there's a responsibility and there's a set of healthy parameters that allow you to understand, okay, this is not working for me, and thank you, but no thank you. If that's all that's on offer, I really don't want to be involved with this. And it's surprising how long it takes people to understand that they have a high tolerance in many situations, in a work situation, in a personal situation, in situations with family, where they are unable to instigate or have a mechanism in place where their self-respect comes to the front and says, actually, no, I'm shutting down the shutters on this one. It's no longer open for discussion. It does not help me to live my life in a more productive way. So when people are compromised in how they apply their self-respect, many people just don't realize what self-respect is. So what is self-respect? The big question. Self-respect is being able to say, no, I do not like that. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I do not want it in my life. Please respect that. There's a certain Britishness about the no thank you and yes please that solves everything. And there's a little link into how that works with never having to really explain why you've made those two choices. It's very old-fashioned, but these days with so much exposure everywhere, we almost feel compelled to tag on an explanation for everything that we make a decision about, because we are concerned with the feelings of the other person, sometimes, and I know it was in my case, above and beyond what it was for my feelings, which was my detriment. And apparently, after many, many years of counseling, I mean, we understand now that I have something called I'm under-regulated, which means I have a high tolerance for abuse, and I find it hard, or I lack the programming to process things, to put myself first, almost as if I feel guilty putting myself first, something I've had to work on quite a lot over the years to get used to being able to say, well, it may mean that I can't have this in my life, and it might be something, someone, you know, a place, whatever it is, but it means that going back there and dealing with it, with things the way they are, means that I'm unable to deal with that. And for my own self-preservation, my own equilibrium, my own peace of mind, I have to be able to say, it's fine, you know. You don't have to explain that. You don't have to make an excuse to justify what it is you want. It should just be something that sits here, and you're able to say, well, self-respect is about me. It stops with me, it starts with me, and when I decide to throw down the gauntlet and say, that's enough, and these are my parameters, this is my fence, I'm not going any further than this, the other person is not entitled to an explanation, is not entitled to something that I'm unprepared to give them or that is unnecessary. They should respect, and it's a two-way street, of course, that I don't have to explain everything in my life, and that if I make a decision based on that, they are then free to make a decision whether they want that kind of person with those views in their life. It frees us up quite a bit to be able to be open about how we feel and then to make a call on it. And it then stems into something else, which allows you to say, well, okay, is it a case of you must take the good with the bad in people? So they may do something or be something as part of their personality, which you really aren't too keen on. And then there's other elements of their personality which you're absolutely in love with. Or as many people would understand, you tend to see the things that you see in yourself in others, which means that you admire those qualities in them. But the way people are and the way our upbringings are, they're so diverse and different from cultural perspectives, from geographical perspectives. It's going to be very hard unless you find somebody in the same town, at the same school, with the same thing. And then it becomes kind of incestuous. You haven't moved on from that. But when you find somebody who's a bunch of different qualities, which is pretty much everybody, it's about being able to say, well, my self-respect is a good gauge to say the mix and the balance here works. I can cope with having a little plus on this side and a little negative on that side. I'm not trying to just cherry pick the essentially fundamental good parts and remove or eliminate the bad parts, because I understand as a mature adult that that is absolutely going to make my life impossible. I have to be able to take a nice deep breath and console myself and assess every second of the day, really, what's going on under the hood. Am I feeling good? What do I feel? Not what is the other person feeling, because there's no end to that way of thinking, the logic. It's about being able to say, I'll handle myself, you can handle yourself. And there's a very famous book called I'm Okay, You're Okay. And it's not about saying, yeah, I'm okay, go fuck yourself. That's not what the story is here. This is more about saying, well, you know, if everybody were to take care of themselves and to think about themselves and in a context of how they interact with other people, then we'd all have the golden ratio, a golden rule, sorry, the golden ratio is different, golden rule, which is treat others as you'd like to be treated. And in there's a lot of self-respect in saying, well, I know if I go past this point, if I trespass on the good nature of this person, that eventually they'll become wise to that. Whether they don't the first few 10, 100 times is up to, you know, me to understand that I keep on pushing that boundary. One day they may become wise to what it is I'm doing. And I don't have enough self-respect to stop myself until it gets to crisis point, then I'm unable to pull myself out of it because I've violated this person so many times and betrayed myself. So it's about having that equilibrium also to be able to say, you know what, I'm okay. Here's where I draw the line. Meet me in the middle. Let's just go forward together. If you can't deal with that, but you can still deal with having me in my life, me in your life, then let's try and find that happy balance, because I know as sure as one day I'm having those issues with somebody else in my life, the next day they could be having them with me. But what they do demonstrate, when you are centered and able to hold back and feel this self-respect and keep your feelings in check and not react consistently in a way, you can respond and say, well, you know, I have to take the good with the bad and not cherry pick from this person and expect that they're only going to bring me joy and light, because even my life, you know, everybody's life is a mixed bag of everything that happens. Life is shitty and life's a mess, and people have mixed up views on stuff, which sometimes take a while to evolve. And once they evolve, they stick and they're able to put it into a context. And the biggest thing I found, I'm not religious at all. I don't have a religious bone in my body. I was brought up in a religious environment. But what I understand is the Bible has some good things. The Quran has some good things. These books are old, historic documents and full of proverbs and meanings and helpful guidelines to help you understand different scenarios. Now we have the internet, so we can get a broad perspective of all that. But some of these stories, of course, from my generation would have stuck there, the fables and all the stories, you know, look before you leap. They carry a message to them. One of the ones that always sticks with me, there's two, I think, you know, that basically help me to understand and respect myself insofar as other people are concerned, is that nobody is fully aware of everything that happens. And as life evolves, as life becomes like an opening flower in the morning sun, you cannot rush that in people. Now, some people have had the privilege of being exposed to many different areas of life at a very young age, as I was, as many people who I grew up with. We had different type of life to the people who are kind of sheltered these days. But understanding that some people don't understand or have that foresight of being able to say, well, actually, I can see what's happening here, but the person I'm interacting with just can't see that. Well, because the sun isn't shining on them, the flower hasn't opened now, there's no grounds for me to be angry at that person. The burden then falls to me to be able to go, well, actually, I have to slow down here, because this person may not understand, and their actions may just be based on what they think is right. Now, what they think is right is going to be exactly where they're at in their level of learning. So in that respect, I have to be able to say, you know what, I have to add a little pinch of salt here, because they don't know what they're doing, whereas I do. Now, I can go blue in the face trying to explain it to them, but until this occurs to them, the story from the Bible about turning the other cheek isn't about Jesus being a tough nut. It's about Jesus saying, you know what, I can see what's happening here. You may not see what's happening here, but if you feel good in doing that by striking me, turn it and do the other side as well. It will make you feel even better. But he understood the futility behind that. This is a really good meditation process that you go through when you understand the meaning behind this story. Then basically the other person goes away and they're lying there in bed and they start realizing, okay, Jesus Christ. Well, they wouldn't have said that. They said, well, maybe I can understand now what he was trying to do, what his message was. And the guy was willing to allow me to go through with how I felt in order for me to come round to this way of thinking. So they're lying there thinking, shit, what the fuck have I done? But the beauty of this story is not just what he did in the initial phases, it's also that the story is that he left the door open. So this guy's lying there thinking, well, not only did I do this, but I also now have the opportunity to go back, because this guy made it possible for me to go back and not to be judged and not to be made a fool of, because he realized that all I needed was to come to my own senses. And I think self-respect is a lot to do with that, is building up that confidence, building up the understanding that things in life only change when you do, when you're ready, when the sun shines on you. When everything is ready, the sun comes out, and at night time, the moon comes out and it's dark. But things change very well on their own, but we're also very reactive to how things change. And most people respond or react with anger instead of saying, well, you know what, sometimes I'm going to have to take this one on the chin, because this person, if they mean something to me, I might have to allow them to come to their own realizations before I can really have any impact. By doing that, by making those gestures toward people and saying, well, look, let's give them the benefit of the doubt without being a passive person being walked over like a doormat, you're able to then instigate the basis of your relationship. And I can honestly say many of the friends that I have, who've had for many, many, many years, they appreciate that about our relationship, is that we don't jump to judgment, that we have a nice bond together that is based on, well, if he's saying no, thank you, I don't need to push him as to why. If he's saying yes, please, I know that he wants it, but either way, it's equal to me. But the gesture is the same. It should not be based on an outcome of what they're expecting. The expectations that other people have of you could be far removed from what your self-respect is. But building a concept of how you actually apply these boundaries, a very gentle no, accepting that, you know, this isn't right for me. Thank you very much, but I'm unavailable for this. I don't feel good with that. Or lowering down your expectations of what other people or how other people should be in your life. Trusting other people for a certain amount of things, knowing that you have no loss in doing so. You seem to worry about losing financial gain or financial hardship or some kind of material loss. But the truth is that when you're honest and you actually feel from the heart and deal with people that way, you're able to make a better connection with them than you would do if you're trying to constantly analyze with your head and second guess them and be suspicious of them and have a really kind of guilt trip orientated mind that gets people to coerce them into, oh, why can't you do that? Oh, that's not fair. You know, forget about all that shit. You've got to be able to be free to make those choices. So when you look at life from that light or under that light, it's easier to see what it is you want and much easier to allow the things that you don't want just to pass by, because they will pass by. And most of the time, having that level of self-respect and knowing that there's deeper feeling and thought that goes behind this allows a lot of calmness and allows you to do things in a way that most people can't, because they don't allow themselves the room to be able to expand. But saying that, you interact every so often. Lots of my friends are older, and I've always found it fascinating what older people are like. And I'd say most of the people in my life who are older have been an inspiration to me, but a lot of them have also been a disappointment to me, because I feel I've moved past where they are and I'm younger. It's not a big-headed thing, but I think to myself, really, this is how you want to deal with this? You're still stuck in that mindset? How has life been for you that has led you down that path so far? You're unable to change that. So in self-respecting myself, I'm able to accept what they are. I'm able to accept the situation. I reflect on my values. I'm able to then be able to modify my values if I'm inspired by something they've shown me. Every day we evolve. Every day is a new day. It's not going to be the same as yesterday. I'm not going to have the same feelings. I'm definitely going to take on board those deep, deep cuts that I had yesterday, which will heal. And the price that I pay is that my emotional growth continues. So all the jagged rocks where everything used to get snagged on, over time, the wind and the sand and the water that runs over them starts to wear away all those rough edges, all those angular points that used to cut me down. So now everything becomes nice and smooth, and you run your hand over it just like a marble statue, one of those beautifully carved marble statues, and nothing seems to stick, because you're able to understand that the most important processes that I'll have today will be inside. And there'll be decisions that I'll be able to make for me based on what's right for me, based on self-respect, not what's on other people's minds, not like some dancing monkey that has to jump up and down and continue to please other people before I get to look at what is right for me. You and I get to choose what is right for us. You and I then have to respect what's right for the other person and not question it. If the other person feels like discussing it with you, well, fine. If you feel like listening, well, fine. But in the meantime, it's not being conceited to just get on with your life and to take into consideration what other people want and what you want, but putting what you want first of all, which I think is the most important part of what self-respect is. And with that, you have very firm boundaries. You can have the most liberal views in the world, but your principles and your values become something that you live by. And it allows you to integrate and stay part of normal everyday life without isolating yourself or being too tied to material things, which just leads you to this persistent fear of loss of prestige, loss of material possessions, loss of reputation, whatever it is that you're fearing, because you've built up this persona which has less to do with self-respect and integration with everybody else, but more to do with how isolated you've made yourself by means of saying how successful you are and trying to distinguish yourself above and beyond the level where it's really unimportant. Most people get like that. I mean, they become so high and mighty and up on a pedestal that not only do they have nowhere to go or nobody to talk to, but most people just like to take a pop at them because, well, they're up there and I might as well take a shot at them. Just target practice. And they become a legitimate target simply because they had no means of self-regulating. Their idea of self-respect is to take more for themselves, to deprive others, not to share. But self-respect, in my eyes, also involves saying, well, I have enough here. I don't need to continue to stockpile, this mentality of stockpiling. I don't need to keep on taking away from the system when there's enough here for me to be quite happy. And by doing that, by stockpiling, there comes a point where I think I've got so much that fundamentally I stop trying. I lose my edge. I then become removed. I become used to being working from past merit without actually having to every day sharpen my sword a little bit to keep me nice and focused. That's what happens, I think, when people retire. They have a bulk of things that they think they can do with money, but that money soon becomes their demise because their brain dulls. Everything becomes a slow kind of molasses kind of way of living, like treading through molasses, and nothing has any joie de vivre about it anymore. Everything is just a big fucking bore. But for me, I respect myself to know that if I want to be healthy, if I want to have a good body, if I want to feel like $1 million, then I have to respect myself to make choices, to make time in my day which might mean I have to exclude other pursuits, which could be something that other people see worthy of sitting in an office for 50 hours, which I don't personally see any value in anymore. And if you're still stuck in that, well, fine, you'll find a way out of that if that means something to you. But that might well be the happiest thing that you've done in your life. But saying that, one of the things I do ask myself, I said, when I was a little boy, what did I want to be? And the truth is, part of why I didn't have any self-respect is because I had no vision like that. I had no understanding that I had that option. But later in life, I was able to understand, and I've had my own businesses for 20 years, but I mean, that independence and freedom is just what I want. But freedom at no cost or detriment to my ability to interact with people. I want to be able to do my own thing. I don't want to be a rich man. I want to be able to eat humble foods. I want to be able to go where I want, say what I want, stand up straight and make choices that are right for me and my family. And that's it. And then by doing that, I have to be able to say, well, if it's good for the goose, it has to be good for the gander, okay? But people don't tend to see that. And that's what happens when people get up on their preachy high horses and start saying, well, you know, if only this and if only that. Well, it's not the case. We have to all pull together. And that's why life is always about coming back to the basics, getting back in the trenches with everybody, staying down low and making sure you don't remove yourself. And a rising tide lifts all boats. So I'll be there when everybody comes up and not just certain people who are taking more and more and more. I'm not a socialist, by the way. I've never voted in my life. This is more about fairness and respecting myself to a point where I remove my self-respect by allowing greed and anger to control me if I don't keep a good eye on what that means. Everything comes good, everything. And our biggest fear in life is maybe be incarcerated or to get sick with a terminal disease. But then the final thing is that we're all frightened of dying. I'm not frightened of dying. I'm ready to die. I'm not some crazy nut who wants to die, but I recognize that I'm living my life now, thanks to respecting myself every second of every day. I have a choice to fill those seconds up with something rather than nothingness or yearning for a different thing, but not working towards that. But I also recognize that I'm not going to get it right every single time. I'm going to fuck up a lot. But those minutes filled with fuck ups is better than dead time where we're filled with nothing, boring, vanilla, formless custard that most people have for spines. That's not me. I'm not afraid to make these mistakes. I'm not afraid to say this is what I feel. And then if I've made a mistake, now I have learned, keep your mouth shut, say what's necessary, and keep the rest in there and let it go. Respect yourself. Keep that under wraps. But that's all part of a process that people have to understand. But when you come from a good place, when your motivation is good and you are satisfied with it objectively with yourself, then you're able to make good choices. You're able to make choices that don't have to pan out. It's an experience. If you're reckless and you're greedy and you're angry, your life is just like, you know, too much anger, too much bad emotion, too many bad vibrations in your life, and nothing seems to add up. Nothing gets done. It's always temporary. You don't seem to have a consistent period where you've developed something. And even if you have to stop and step back and then go back to it, you're always ready to pick up where you left off because you have the calm reassurance to know these are my parameters. I'm willing to change them should the needs be. I'm also willing to stick to them for as long as I need to until something better comes along. And that's one of the things I found, that it is an evolving process. The way I see things now, the calm that I have, the things I had to let go, the things I had to change in my life, the mistakes I realized I'd made. You never make the same mistake twice. And this gives you the opportunity to grow, to be free, to let go, to drop the emotional baggage, to challenge everything that was dumped on you as a child or the things that were taken from you. It doesn't matter. Ships, as they say, don't sink because of the water that is around them. It's the water that gets into them that counts. So for me, it's about making sure I've patched up all my leaks now. And if I see water come in, it's easy for me to understand, okay, there's a process that I can apply here. With my self-respect in place, I have nothing to worry about because I have nothing that I can't cope with, because I have to build that up. When people are, a little more erratic, and you see that, the other story which really comes into play here, which I always think about, is when Jesus says, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." And I think that was when they're putting him up on the cross, which was a very magnanimous thing to say under the circumstances. But I truly understand what he's saying, because although he would have been thinking about himself and saying, "Come on, let me down, this is really shit," at the end of the day, what he was saying is, if they knew better, they'd do it. They don't know any better. But I do know better. I can't try and say that I'm going to tell you what to do. I have to wait and hope sometimes that they'll pick up on that. And obviously, it's an extreme situation when you're being nailed up on a cross, but there's a lesson inside there that says you must let go of yourself. You must let go of being right, of being able to tell people what's good for them. They will come to that conclusion if and when the time is right. And if you've been enlightened enough and you've seen the way, and there are different ways of being, that if you live your life with your self-respect, the things that occur to you are much more forthright and clear and calm and centered. And it's an amazing process that you get to a level where you feel good about yourself. And when you go out of yourself into the outside world, and you deal with other people, you're able to apply that to every situation you get into. And people will genuinely start to appreciate that. And it is a different perspective, and it is hard for people to see why you're doing it. But at the end of the day, once you understand it and you've applied it consistently for a long period of time, it's one of the biggest keys of living that most peaceful life. They are they, I am I have my values. No matter what they say or do, they cannot come in here. Inside here, I have 100% control. Outside there, not so much so. But I have no fear. I can be a human. I can interact. I can love. I can let go of hate. I can stop pain cycles. I can be cool about stuff because I understand what my self-respect is. And I'll make choices that will help me to sustain that. I'll eat well. I look out for my own well-being. I won't poison my body with alcohol and drugs. I'll do exercise as and when I feel necessary. I won't interfere with other people's lives and make them have to doubt or judge them, which is a huge thing these days. Everybody has an opinion on everything else everybody wants to do. But fundamentally, we have to respect each other. We have to respect each other and what we have to say, because without those opposing views, there'd just be a whole row of drones nodding, all barking the same order with a very George Orwellian 1984 kind of spiel to, yes, Big Brother is right. No, we need that variety. We need to respect ourselves to allow that variety to continue. And I think that's one of the most important parts of what self-respect is. I'm still going to therapy. I still talk about my feelings. I have learned to put them first, not to the detriment of others, but to consider what they're saying and to consider what I'm saying and what's fair and what the outcome and responsibility of that outcome is for me. If I make a selfish choice, which really excludes somebody else's needs and hopes, so long as those needs and hopes are valid and not based on greed, anger, or those negative emotions, then I'm really just damaging myself. But by going with a process that allows me to understand, that allows me to integrate how I feel, consistently appraising that situation, but being able to apply that. And, I learned to grow and let go of some of the things. And that rock that was so jagged and caught up with so much frustration and anger starts to become even smoother. And I feel better. I feel I have a life that's with purpose, that I've traveled a distance, that I'm not standing making the same mistakes I was when I was 20, that I have a calmness, that I've earned it, that there's nothing that I can't do if I choose to. But up until the point, my choices are always with two answers: no, thank you, or yes, please. And that's as far as I go. I have to be polite. I don't have to add on an explanation for anything. I don't have to do that. So fundamentally, what self-respect has taught me is that it starts and ends with me. It's inside. And everybody outside, well, it's how I deal with them. It's how I deal with myself, not other people. There are always going to be other people. We all have to get along. And I have to take the same measure for them as I want for me, that they have their unique feelings. Anyway, so that's a good sign for me to shut up. The camera's gone off. So just give me 2 secs. I think I know. And we're back again. I will fix this. I'm just using my DSLR and there's something coming through the cables which isn't right, but it must be a little bit annoying. But anyway, it's a good point for me to say yes. So any questions? We've got no viewers. I had 1 viewer last night, so I know who that person was now. I've discovered who that was. Peace, man. Peace, everybody. Peace and love, man. It is true. All you need is love, and it's love that comes in. There's a good saying. It says, if the captain's okay, the ship can sail. And this is very important when dealing with other people. You know, even when it's with your family, with my little boy, have I eaten properly? Has he eaten properly? Well, okay. Now, if I'm okay, he's okay. That's the thing about it. The ship needs its crew as well as it needs a ship without holes in it, but it needs a captain to take on everything. So not a selfish captain that makes his crew go without food, because what's the benefit of that? When I need them to hoist up the mainsail, if they haven't got the strength because I haven't fed them, well, there's something wrong with that. But I have to eat first to make sure that I'm in charge and making sure nothing goes wrong as far as I'm concerned. I can be the only one who does that. So if the captain's okay, the ship can sail. The crew have to make sure the crew are okay. And they'll understand that the captain will do what the captain has to do. It's not about making people go without. It's about having the same as everybody else and recognizing what our roles are and how we do them. And we get to choose that also. You want to be a captain? Go ahead, be a captain. You want to be a sailor? Go ahead, be a sailor. That's your choice. But be prepared to deal with the things that go along with that. Don't expect to be a captain with the responsibilities of a simple crew member. This is what self-respect is, understanding what you've taken on. You want that promotion at work? Fine, go get that promotion at work. That's your thing, go do it. But don't moan about it because you're stressed out and you've got no time for yourself. If money's all you want, money's all you get. What you're paying for isn't, when you buy stuff, isn't with money. It's with the money, with the time, that you've spent doing your work to be able to buy those things. And if you could have feasibly done without those things, then what have you been doing all that work for when you've been missing out on the small things like being free, going for a walk, being happy with what you are and how you are, recognizing how little we might need and the importance of, by going to work every day, I'm not able to exercise as much as maybe I could do to ensure optimal ongoing health. Well, fine. If you've traded that off for money, then that's your level of selling out, I guess, to a certain extent, to what is important to you, because the self then is denied. And when you deny the self, pain will follow. Anguish and resentment follows. And those things are never, ever containable. They start very small. And once the rot sets in, this will spread and spread and spread until one day the whole structure just caves in. And you're unable to cope with the ongoing anguish that you yourself have put yourself under. I don't understand why people work so hard to be so miserable. I really don't get that. Stop working so hard. Have less, live more. So you've got to spend half as much money on your kids and twice as much time with them. And you can't do that if you're just dumping them in school or private school or daycare and just fucking off to work. It will come back and you'll miss that because you didn't respect yourself to understand that these opportunities, these seconds when you see these kids growing up, they only come around once and then it's gone. The time you had to bond with them, to be close to them, disappears. It evaporates very quickly. And if you haven't taken the time, sometimes it's a struggle. It's a fucking struggle to go without. When you think I could be there earning $6,000, $7,000 a week. Yeah, but I have to sacrifice so much of myself, trading off of my self-respect to be able to fill my pockets while I'm emptying my heart. And that's not fun for anybody. That's not a life for anybody with any kind of longevity. And you might be able to do it 20, 30, 40 years of sacrificing yourself, but half of your life doing that. So the payoff is what? So you can retire? For me, that's not a great deal of self-respect. Being self-sufficient and recognizing what I need to live without taking more means that there's also more for other people. There's more to go around. But first of all, there's plenty to go around. The table is full of food. We need to build longer tables and invite more people to sit at them rather than hoarding and stockpiling things for one person. No person on the planet needs more than XYZ in their bank account at the cost and detriment of people who have nothing. I don't see the value of that. And I respect myself enough to keep tabs on how that works, to make sure I don't overindulge or get caught up in a cycle of greed, which sucks me into that. And that's part of what happens. True success, I find, isn't about how much money you've got in the bank. It's how creative you are, the impact that you had, the things that you changed, what your energy brought to the situation. And whether you get paid for that or not, well, people will pay to see a good show, you know. That's always a given. I've never struggled to make money because I've always done things properly. I've always been out in front. And the reason why I succeed in those things, my self-respect is in place in business, because I know this is a challenge. If I'm going to do this, I want to be the best shopkeeper. I want to be the best personal trainer. I want to be the best photographer. And in that respect, that's what drives me more than money. But money follows you because people admire those qualities and they think, wow, I wish I could do that, rather than it just pays the bills, you know. Is that your sum total of your dreams, of your hopes and aspirations for your life? Sad, isn't it? I do tell my little boy, I have this discussion as well, not in a way it says you're special, you can do anything. No, I don't tell him that to delude him that he could be a fucking spaceman. If he wants to go to space, he's got to study. He wants to be a brain surgeon, he has to go to university and study the brain. He wants to do whatever it is, but whatever he chooses, he can do that. He can't just make it up. He's not special beyond the powers that he has magical powers, and that the rules of life don't apply to him. So by not giving him platitudes and pushing him away and shutting him up with, yes, dear, because the milkman said it has to go that way, and Santa Claus, whatever, fuck that. The truth, respecting yourself, respecting your kids, to tell them if you want to do something, you make a plan and you'll do it. And if you execute it and that's what you really want, then go ahead and do it. But to see people walking around the city like zombies, just grey, and going and sitting in an office year after year after year, like caged animals, with the life just draining out of them in sedentary environments, suicide in installments, for me, it's not a high manifestation of how happy they feel with their lives. And I understand we all need to work together. We all need to have things to pull together as a community, as a society, to develop. And I understand that we wouldn't have the breakthroughs if people hadn't spent time in laboratories, spent time in doing these researches. I understand that. Who's to say we wouldn't have come up with something different if the parameters weren't different, if we respected ourselves to understand, well, let's all just do what we can, instead of trying to come in and say, done my 8 hours, I'm getting out of here now. 6 of those were on Facebook, you know. So if I was realistic about it and I was paid to a level where I needed to, or if I generated my own income and I self-respect myself, not to take too much, to stop when I've got enough, my needs are met, and I have no expectation that I should get a handout, that I'm always going to have to take care of myself. Well, that's great. It's a lot more self-respect needed for people to understand you don't go to university, then fall into a job that's just going to pay you for the rest of your life. No way. Hard times are coming. Good times are coming. But self-respect allows you to be able to process each of those different situations equally and to have the same impact. Negative makes the positive. Positive makes the negative. The relativity of understanding that. It's a bridge that is gapped with self-respect. You fill the gap between those negative and positive with self-respect by understanding how it all works, and understanding it starts here. Nobody gets in, nobody's allowed in, only when I let them. Nobody can upset me. Nobody can take away from me. Of course, you can take my clothes, you can take all my equipment, go ahead. You can take all of that, but they're just things, not people. And if I want people to be better, I have to be better. And if people don't notice what I'm doing, people haven't noticed what I'm doing. If people notice what I'm doing, fine. If they like it, fine. If they don't like it, fine. What matters is what I'm doing. I'm not better than anybody. I'm the same as everybody, but different. My experiences have led me to this. Who's to know that somebody else's experiences over here aren't better? If I'm willing to just exclude those without being insightful enough to say, well, what is it that makes that guy tick? Do I understand it? If I can understand it, then I can integrate it. I can make it part of how I see things. If I understand it and I don't agree with it, my boundaries don't extend to that, or I haven't grown enough, or the sun isn't on me for long enough for my petals to open up, well, that's something else, isn't it? Self-respect comes first. Love yourself. Understand yourself. Be kind. Don't get caught up in explaining to people what it is you feel and how you feel. My God, no. You love somebody, tell them. You want something, make a plan to do it. You're not happy with something, stop. Change it. Don't explain it. Don't be angry. Those were your choices that put you there. So now all you have to do, reverse that process or go off to a different side or change completely. It's up to you. Every second of every day is another chance to make a choice, a decision, and nobody can do anything to you that you don't allow. And once you respect yourself, you'll understand that. And you'll do things that are only in your best interest, and you're responsible for everything you do and say. And in many cases, you learn to say less, so you have to apologize less. You know, if you fuck up because you're just saying things off the top of your head, or if your first reaction is one of anger and you can't control yourself, well, those are things that need to be worked on, need to be changed, because nothing will change until you do, till you get a good grip on that, because that will put another hole in the bottom of your boat immediately. Multiple holes, a hole so big you could put a fucking barrel through it. But at the end of the day, the only person who can prevent that damage, you might end up having to build a whole new boat if you're so fucking badly damaged. But at the end of the day, you're the only one who can prevent that. But sooner or later, everything comes good. So long as you're picking it up and you're sticking with your boundaries, considering what other people feel, but also putting your feelings first without being antagonistic or overbearing or having some consideration that your feelings somehow or way of thinking overrules what that person thinks. That's them. This is you. That's all you have to remember. Okay. Anyway, so we've gone on in a little bit here. I hope you like the topic we had of self-respect today. And any questions? Am I live? Yes, I'm live. So you can put things on the bottom of here. And if you're watching on YouTube, it says join the audience over here. If you want to watch on YouTube and join the audience in a Hangout, which gives you all these wonderful things on the side, you can still ask questions in YouTube, I believe. But there's more things that I can do over here in the Hangouts screen. So it says be part of this, be part of the audience, I believe. But anyway, it's all good. Never mind. I hope you've enjoyed today. I really have enjoyed talking about it. It's something that's very dear to me because I've been through quite a lot and I've had to come to a lot of realizations about letting go, Pat. Let go, Pat. You've made mistakes. I've made so many fucking mistakes. A lot. Some, you know, I'm not proud of at all. And everything comes home to roost. That guy lying in bed thinking about stuff, the turn the other cheek thing, is fucking huge, man. And, you know, so you understand if I want to stop that from happening. And that, just on the final point, has a lot to do with what most people call karma. They have known karma's going to get you. Like it's got some vengeance and a knife. It's going to come down an alleyway and going to get you, going to get you. It's not about that. It's about eventually, if I make this unenlightened choice without considering the lessons that life has taught me, this is going to have some kind of backlash that's going to come back around later, and it'll have a sting in its tail. I can minimize that by doing the right thing now, rather than overriding the red flags that come up. When a red flag comes up, stop, look at it, think about it. Examine it and ask yourself, what is that popping up for? What does that compromise for me? Now, if you go past that, then you go past an alarm bell and you continue to do something, continue to say something, you will then have to stop and eat shit at some stage. That is the truth of self-respect. Self-respect is saying, no, this is wrong. This is not right with me. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm stopping for whatever reason. Don't have to verbalize it. Don't have to put it in a presentation and give it to everybody. You just go, for me, I'm out. Thank you very much. I'm not being part of that. It's not good for me. No, thank you. And that's it. No explanation. Yes, please. And you proceed. If you feel good about something, you say, yeah. You throw the ball back to your partner. They reciprocate with feelings. They tell you how much they love you, what they feel, and what their hopes and their fears are. You've got to take the good stuff with the bad stuff. You can't cherry pick. You can't just say, oh, I'll just have this nice bit here, and the rest of it I'll just ignore. Again, a red flag will pop up when you start ignoring too much. Or if you don't address things as they arise and say, yeah, sorry, that's unacceptable for me. I can't do that. So having that tiny cog put into your mechanism, which might be missing, which is called self-respect, changes how the machine works. It might be rolling around, but once you change that, it's the tiniest of things that you have to do. Self-respect becomes the biggest part of that machine. You see how it hums so differently once it's in place, so harmoniously, so complete. Try it. You'll like it. Maybe not. Give me a shout, pat@ilovept.com. We deal a lot with this. Now, as part of a PT session, what happens is, I deal with a lot of people who are burdened by this kind of thing from the CBD, big high flyers, all the way up to court judges and CEOs of the major companies, all come to train, and they weep like little girls because they're at this point where they can no longer reconcile their behavior against what it is that it's doing to them inside. There's a conflict that makes them do things they would never have done had they allowed their personal self-respect to prevail above and beyond what was asked of them by an institution that sucked them dry of everything in the end. And I see that quite a lot over the years I've been doing this. So it's an interesting one. I must admit, I see it so much when you have to try and help them like Humpty Dumpty to recognize, well, if you're unhappy, you have to change your life. You don't like your job, you have to quit your job. You don't like your wife, you have to leave your wife or fix it. And it might be that you've both put out landmines in a minefield in front of each other, and things get so wild so quickly, you no longer even remember where those mines are. So the other person has become estranged from you. You're unable to make reparation because you say, I'm sorry for that. And they've heard it so many times. You've traded and trespassed on their good nature so many times by not respecting them or yourself. They no longer have anything that they can associate or feel for you because you've traded off that. You've made excuses for your lack of self-respect so many times. They just don't, they see all the way through you. And what's the solution? Apply what you've learned. Do what is right for you without assessing it through means of the filter of financial gain or material gain or gaining prestige or reputation, which is just all of those deadly sins right there. Be free. Be human. You're an animal. You need to eat and shit today. The rest of us. And you pick your nose and you make gaffes and you do things. And the rest is all parlor tricks. It's parlor tricks. We're all making this shit up as we go along. All of us. Scratch the surface on an expert, you'll see some bumbling fool who's just got used to being able to say, well, yes, actually, it's how we do this. And if you invest your money here, because they've got a good act. Fucking hell, they've spent years polishing their act. So we're all the same. Respect yourself. Come down, back to the trenches. Life here is good. It's very good. You may not have as many toys or live in a palace, but here you have the love of your life with yourself. And who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to be in love or worthy of that? If you're not worthy of that, if people don't see or can understand or get a vibration from that, they might not understand it completely, but you put out, you're an echo, you attract what's happening inside here. And if you're not willing to be that person, well, you're going to attract the shit. If you go fishing with shit and bottom feeders, you catch the worst fish. You can roll with the turkeys or soar with the eagles. It doesn't mean you choose that on what they have financially. It's what you choose are the people who bring to your life, who are open, who don't take away from your life, who want to see you flourish, who want to see you grow. These are very important parts. I love you. I'm going to say peace out here. Peace. All you need is love, self-respect, love one another, do what's right for you, and keep the faith, man. Have I got any viewers? No. I hate them. Bastards. Where are you? No, I don't care. I do this because I love it and I'm enjoying it. All right. Okay. And I want to change my business. It's a challenge, right? Okay. I love you. Be good. If you like me, you can have a look at the other stuff. If you've got a question for me, write it down, email it to me. Okay, brothers and sisters, be good to one another, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.